Hi, good evening all of you. I am Nishant and welcome to a new episode of Arguably the Reading Quest. So in this video I'm going to talk about 3 female writers who are almost forgotten or are obscure in modern day India. Not that people have forgotten their writing, but there has been no literary discussions around their writing insofar as I can see from my perspective in the past 2 decades or so. There have been no literary discussions around them, there have been no social media posts around them, there have been no Instagram posts about them, and the young generations has almost forgotten these writers. So in this video I'm going to introduce you 3 female writers from India who are forgotten, who are underrated. So the first name that comes to my mind is Anita Desai. Her work In Custody. So, Anita Desai, to those who do not know who she is, she was a member of the Advisory Board of English of the National Academy of Letters in Delhi, a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature in London. Anita Desai is an Indian novelist and a professor emeritus of humanities at the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, America. And she has been shortlisted for the Booker Prize 3 times. So you can, understand her literary contributions. So In Custody, before we start, just let me give you a glimpse of her writing by quoting some of her quotes. Before time crushes us into dust, we must accord our struggle against it. We must engrave our name in the sand before the wave comes to sweep it away and make it a part of the ocean. He shifts through alternative like torn pieces of grey paper. Please listen to it once again. He shifted through alternatives like torn pieces of grey papers. He realized that he loved poetry, not because it made things immediate, but because it removed them to a position where they became bearable. They sat there on the terrace like a pair of Nawabs, stranded in the backwater of time. So In Custody is a mesmerizing, riveting tale of loss, love and identity. And this novel perfectly captures the human weaknesses, and all the characters who are there in the novel are shouldering their human weaknesses and are decaying with the passage of time as the novel progresses from beginning to end. So this novel is about a character called Devan, who was a Hindi lecturer. So when he got an opportunity through one of his friends to interview Urdu poet Noor, who was in his decadence, who has passed his prime. So Devan thought of it as a escape from the humdrums of everyday life and as a token to a glorious life, a glorious future that awaits him if he would be able to interview Noor. And then he went on to interview Noor. But there again another tragic story awaits him. Is that Noor himself was not aware of his own prime. Noor himself was completely at loss of his own identity. So In Custody can be read as in 2 different ways actually. One as a metaphor for a language like Urdu, which is dying in its own heartland, or has been relegated to alien language in its own motherland, that is India. In Custody can also be read as a decadence of loss and identity, and how Noor was captured by sycophant's wife, obnoxious servants, and all such people. So this is one story where a decline of language and whose beauty and lyrical prose seem to elevate the most mundane of topics almost to a mystical height. So please read Anita Desai, and if you like In Custody, please read her other works as well. The next name that comes to my mind is Kamala Das. This is her selected poems published at Penguin. What surprised me about the present generation reader is that there has been a clamor to read Sylvia Plath, there has been clamor to read Emil Dickenson. So if people who are reading and fond of Sylvia Plath and Emil Dickenson, why can't they read Kamala Das? She was an icon who was an iconoclast herself. She was a rebel who defies every categorization. And she was one of the foremost poetess of past India, whose work explored sexuality, loss of love, companionship, young age, old age, and as I can say that we have often fondly known about Emily Dickenson, that her poems always revealed that she lived amongst the constant presences of the dead people around her. I can say the same thing about Kamala Das, that she lived not with the dead people around her, with the constant presences of dead people around her, rather she lived with a constant presence of haunting nostalgic images around her. So her poems will remind you of haunting nostalgic images. So please read Kamala Das. I would like to quote some of her poems. Wipe out the paints, unmould the clay, let nothing remain on that yesterday. I again repeat, wipe out the paints, unmould the clay, let nothing remain on that yesterday. She offers a fresh perspective on women's sexuality. Please mind it, and from an Indian poetess. She has touched several taboo topics of time, such as coming of age in a patriarchal society, love, marriage, on the constructed identity of a woman, and her desire for freedom from such constructions. In 2009, The Times called her the mother of modern English poetry. Yes, you have heard it rightly. Among her many notable achievements are the Pen Asian Poetry Prize in 1963 and a nomination for the Nobel Prize in 1984. Yes, mind it, it is Nobel Prize nomination in the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1984. She was nominated. Now, one of the columnists, Melan P. Kumar, writes that Kamala's autobiographical poems, in which she says she can recall the names of men who dominate the politics of India, and follows this up with a plea for her place in the sun, while likely stressing that her knowledge of language indicates that she is as educated as a man. I am Indian, born in Malabar. I speak 3 languages, write in 2 and dream in 1. In subsequent verses, Kamala speaks of the angst of being told not to write in English, as it is not her mother tongue. These also suggest an interesting aspect of the ownership of language. This language she speaks, this language I speak, becomes mine. It distortions, its queernesses, all mine, mine alone. The next verse explores her sorrow as being married to an older man while on the cusp of puberty, and how she felt used in the physicality of the relationship. The later verses bring out the sorrow of being forced to conform in all ways. Be wife, be embroiderer, be cook, fit in, belong, choose a name, a role, don't play pretending games. The later verses go on to explore her sense of frustration of being hemmed into the family of her in-laws, where she has to conform, while the men, including her husband, can just be themselves. She concludes, I am sinner, I am saint, I am the beloved and the betrayed. I have no joys that are not yours, no aches which are not yours, I too call myself. So this poem to some extent sums up the essence of Kamala Das, who all her life looked for equality and didn't find it. She pinned her faith on a kind of spirituality where she sought God Krishna in the natural beauty around her. In her poem, Only the Soul Knows How to Sing, she writes, Your body is my prison, Krishna. I cannot see beyond it. Your darkness blinds me. Your love words shut out the wise world's din. So please read Kamala Das. The next writer that comes to my mind definitely is Rama Mehta, and her iconic novel on women emancipation and feminism is Inside the Haveli. So Rama Mehta, born in 1923, was an Indian sociologist. She was foremost a sociologist and a writer who is remembered above all for her novel Inside the Haveli that was published in the year 1977. And this book won the Sahitya Akademi Award for the English language works in the year 1979. So Inside the Haveli is a modern classic about an independent women's struggle, how to hold on to her identity in a traditional world. So this is a story of a protagonist called Geeta, an educated and a vivacious Bombay girl who is married into a conservative family in Rajasthan, Rajput royal family. And those who have known the Rajasthani life and those who are interested into the royal life of Rajasthani Rajputs, so they can immediately connect to the life inside the Haveli as Rama Mehta narrates. So, and she's married to a patriarch, and how she has carved a niche for herself amongst the background of patriarchy. She wrote a grammar of her own feminism. But please mind it, if you're expecting some radical feminism of the order of Simone de Beauvoir or radical feminism of the order of let's say Maya Angelou, you are bound to be disappointed. What you may find monotony, I call it linearity. Her prose is very linear, soothing and calm. Her emotions are very moderate, and they conveys not in lot many adjectives and adverbs what she wants you to convey. And then inside the Haveli, Geeta manages to carve an identity for herself. So these 3 books. If you have still not liked, shared and subscribed my channel, arguably The Reading Quest, please do that, guys. Happy reading. Thank you.